I am joined at the top of the third hour of today's show by Assistant to President Trump for Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro. Peter and I have literally known each other for, I believe, 30 years. People don't believe that. But Peter, welcome. It's good to have you on. I think it's the first time we've talked since you joined President Trump's team.
I think that's exactly right. And the last time we saw each other was weird because it was at a Dixie Chicks concert, and we wound up sitting next to one another totally by accident or randomly. But I did enjoy our old days when you were on TV, and I'd come up to L.A. and share the set, but not debate you. And here
Peter,
we are.
You're misrecollecting. It was Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. We were in the top row of the Honda Center, and we were swathed in the smoke that was rising from the floor, which had a peculiar smell.
You have a better memory than I, and we partook of none of that.
Contact High was not on. We weren't talking trade. Now, Peter, I have frequently made you the subject of criticism on the show because I don't believe in tariffs other than with regard to China. You're aware of that, aren't you?
Oh, I am so aware of that, Hugh, and I've never begrudged you your views, and you've never begrudged me mine. We're just having an honest debate. I hope you saw my piece yesterday in the Wall Street Journal and maybe took some of that to heart, because there was an extended defense of the Trump tariffs, which I believe are working beautifully on many fronts.
And I've always said you were a charming and affable old lefty who's wrong on most points, but that
Where do you get this lefty stuff?
From your mayoral run in San Diego, your county supervisor run. But look, this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to talk. I want to congratulate you, though, because while I hate the tariffs on our allies like France, that's for another day. I want to talk about this China deal because tariffs in the context of China are national security policy, not economic policy. Do you agree with me on that, Peter Navarro, that this is not about economics, it's about national security?
So the more subtle framing of that, which is kind of a foundation of the whole Trump administration, is that economic security is national security. So the two are ineluctably intertwined, and too many times in the past, our leaders have been willing to sacrifice our economy to gain national security benefits. What this president understands is if we cede the technology high ground to China by allowing them to attack us economically, we will not only be weaker economically, but also be weaker from a national security point of view. So I think we're on the same page on that, but I see the two as one and the same, and perhaps that's where our disagreement might lie.
Well, our disagreement is primarily geographical. I don't want to have tariffs on France, but I want you to continue to hammer the Chinese, and that's where I want to turn to the agreement today. I've read the New York Times story about it. I haven't read the agreement yet. Michael Pillsbury was on last hour, one of my great experts on China. I quote him, "The Chinese are addicted to technology theft." I agree with that. I know you agree with that. How does this agreement break that addiction?
Let's distinguish between intellectual property theft and forced technology transfer, which are the two big things in this Phase 1 deal. The forced technology transfer, Hugh, is a particularly virulent kind of a form of economic aggression. China has always promised this 1.3 billion consumer market, lured our companies over there, but in exchange for that market access, they've had to surrender their technology. Totally against the rules of the WTO. We were never able to enforce that rule. In this agreement, we will be able to enforce the rule. And critically, the most important part of Phase 1 is the enforcement mechanism. It's a 90-day clock. If a company's got a problem, they come to Lighthizer, who's the United States Trade Representative. It gets adjudicated in 90 days. And if we don't like the result, then we get to take measures to deal with that, and China can't retaliate. That's what they're signing today.
By the way, that's huge. If it works, it's huge, and it will be one of the great feathers in the president's cap. But that's huge. 90 days down. Let me pause for a moment. By the way, Lighthizer is from Ashtabula, Ohio. That's why he's effective, Peter.
I love the guy. He is the best trade representative we ever had. but I don't let his head get swollen because we've only had a trade representative since the 1960s. So
he's from Ashtabula. He's just tough. Just understand the winters in Ashtabula make you tough. Now, let me talk to you about the fact that American companies, though, are still subject to what Michael Pillsbury called mafia-like tactics. Were you disappointed that the NBA caved when China threatened them over the comments of the Houston Rockets general manager?
I was gloriously amused watching people like LeBron James and Steve Kerr and all these people who are just so pious critics of our president, and they folded like a cheap tent. I mean, it was like, you got to be kidding. And, the only one who really spoke up, I thought, beautifully was Shaquille O'Neal, who I always loved when he was back in L.A. Yeah, I mean, that was a disgrace, Hugh. That was an absolute disgrace.
Did the president agree with you that was a disgrace, and why hasn't he said that?
Oh, he's been public about that. I'd go back and look at clips. He talked about the NBA. He tweeted about that. No, he's on that same page.
Good, because
the NBA acted reprehensibly on that. I mean, but here's the thing, Hugh. It's like if they were not a political organization and they didn't have people who were spouting off on politics and dumping on us all the time, that'd be one set of facts. But they've used the basketball court basically to get on their high horse and criticize, speak out politically. But when it came to China, boy, I mean, that was like, I thought that was a beautiful comeuppance. I mean, that made those folks so small. I can't even watch LeBron James play anymore. I just turn the TV off because it's just like, no, I'm not interested in that dude anymore.
Does the president turn him off too?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the president.
I will. Now, the reason I bring it up.
He listens to your show.
What's that?
Doesn't turn you off.
Oh, good. I'm glad he is listening. Tell him he can come on anytime. And I know that he keeps saying he's going to, but we haven't seen him yet. Peter, the reason I bring up the NBA is because of what Pillsbury said. They are the most easily understood example of the mafia-like threat that the PRC exercises over every American company doing business in China. And it was brought up specifically by Michael Pillsbury that GM suffers under the same threat that does the NBA. What are we going to do about that? If they can if they can force the NBA and LeBron James to their knees, they can do it to a small company in America, can't they?
So that's what the enforcement mechanism is all about. That's the ultimate protection here, Hugh. But let me talk a little bit about what Lighthizer has said in this, because it's really interesting. I mean, he says this deal hinges basically on what happens in China, and he distinguishes between a group of reformers in China who legitimately know that their economic model is a disaster and needs to change. That's represented by Liu He, the vice premier, who will be in town today signing that deal. But there's also the hawks, the mercantilist, basically Chinese Communist Party, protectionist, mercantilists, who think that the only way to rise up on the Chinese economy is on the backs of everybody else. And so there's going to be a struggle there. And the good news here, Hugh, is that if the mercantilists in China win, we've got our tariffs and we've got our tough stand. If the reformers win, then we've got a deal that works for the whole world. So this is the best you can do. The president has changed the whole discussion about China. I mean, I don't know how long you've talked about China in the light, the clear light of day, what they do to this country, but it's been an epiphany for a lot of folks in this country. And in the last 3 years, the attitudes on China has completely changed.
No, it is the great achievement in foreign policy to have brought clarity to the relationship between the PRC and the U.S. because this is the superpower competition that will define the next century. It is that most important achievement, other than the federal judiciary and rebuilding the military, that the president gets credit for. I can't let you go, though, without taking a couple of whacks at you. Part of beating China means having a strong France and a strong NATO and a strong system of trading, and I don't think we should be putting tariffs on French wines and champagne. I don't think we should be putting tariffs on Canadian aluminum and Australian aluminum. I just think it's nuts to put tariffs on our allies, Peter Navarro.
All right, let me ask you a question. Do you think
you old rogue, you know this is not a debate, it's an interview.
I want to just here's the thing. Do you think it's nuts for Europe to be able to charge tariffs that are 4 times higher on American cars than we charge on their cars?
Oh, you rogue, I'll play your game. I'll play your game. It does not matter to me when we are a dominant power involved in an existential struggle with the People's Republic of China that some of our allies are taking chips at us. We need them on the map in the South China Sea, Peter.
Let me quote what you've just said is you're willing to give up some of our auto industry in order to have France on our side in the South China Sea. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
And let me just quote the president: when you give up your economic security and for national security, you wind up losing both. So we'll just have a legitimate disagreement.
We do. But I'm just urging you, please keep in mind, we've got to contain this growing superpower.
French are putting this digital tax.
I know all about it.
Digital tax.
Peter, the most important thing is China. Then it's China, and after that, it's China.
I'm with you. Hey, let me ask you this. Did you think I was nuts when I published The Coming China?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Okay.
But you weren't.
Was I right?
You were right.
Was I right?
You were right. And I look, you're an old rogue and you're a lefty, but I love you. And so just keep coming back. I'll see you in D.C., but Peter, I got to go to break.
Let's do this more often. Give me a little love, and I'll give you some too, brother.
All right, be well. Peter Navarro, Assistant to the President. Take care, my friend.
Bye-bye.